For years, Last Man Standing was the show that brought families together every Friday night. The laughs, the characters, and the stories all felt like home to millions of viewers across America. But then everything started to change in ways nobody expected. One by one, the main cast members started leaving the show, and the replacements didn't feel quite the same to longtime fans. Suddenly, viewers were left wondering what happened to their favorite characters and why they had disappeared from their screens. Was it because of creative differences behind the scenes, career changes, or something deeper and more complicated? The true story behind all these departures turned out to be more surprising than most people would have expected. When Tim Allen came back to television in 2011 with Last Man Standing, it wasn't an easy decision for the veteran actor. He had already turned down several big offers from other networks, including one particularly lucrative deal from CBS that would have paid him $1 million for every single episode. But Last Man Standing was different from those other opportunities. The show's creator, Jack Burdett, had imagined Mike Baxter as a new kind of character, someone who felt like an older and wiser version of Tim the Toolman Taylor from Home Improvement. At first, Allen didn't want to take on the role at all. He thought the character was too similar to his old one, and he said no 3 different times when the producers approached him. What finally changed his mind was a deal that gave him real control over the show's direction. Along with starring in the series, he would serve as an executive producer and have a significant say in how the show developed. This creative freedom would later play a big role as the show began touching on various political topics that resonated with certain audiences. ABC had big plans for Last Man Standing right from the start. They wanted it to feel like a modern version of the classic sitcom All in the Family. The core idea was to have a conservative main character whose views would constantly be challenged by his more liberal family members, creating opportunities for both comedy and meaningful conversations. The network decided to put the show on Friday nights, which was traditionally considered a tough time slot for any program. They were hoping that Tim Allen's massive popularity and built-in fan base would be enough to draw viewers to that challenging spot. Their gamble paid off spectacularly when the show premiered in October 2011. An impressive 13.2 million people tuned in to watch that first episode, making it ABC's biggest comedy debut since 2004. Even during its first season, the show dominated its time slot and proved especially popular with viewers aged 18 to 49, which is the demographic that advertisers care about most. This was a particularly big deal for a Friday night show, since that's usually considered one of the hardest slots to succeed in across the entire week. Over the course of 6 seasons on ABC, the show maintained strong ratings and averaged over 8 million viewers per episode, which is why it shocked so many people when the network suddenly decided to cancel it in 2017. In the first season of the show, Alexandra Krosny played Kristen Baxter, the eldest daughter of Mike Baxter. Kristen was portrayed as a young single mother who had her son Boyd when she was just 17 years old. She worked as a waitress at a local restaurant and lived with her parents while trying to balance all the responsibilities of being a young mom. Viewers really loved how Krosny made Kristen feel like a real person with genuine struggles. She had the perfect mix of sass and heart, making her character both funny and deeply relatable to audiences. Her quick and witty comebacks during scenes with Tim Allen's character were often highlights of episodes, and she brought a lot of genuine emotion to Kristen's struggles as she tried to figure out how to be a good mother while still being young herself. But after the first season wrapped up, something completely unexpected happened that caught fans off guard. ABC announced that Krosny wouldn't be returning for the next season of the show. The official statement said it was due to creative differences, but the real reasons behind the decision were actually more complicated than that simple explanation suggested. The show's producers had decided they wanted to change the direction of Kristen's story in significant ways. Instead of continuing to focus on her being a young mom who was still trying to figure things out day by day, they wanted her character to seem older, more mature, and more experienced in life. They thought this change would make the show feel fresher and create new and interesting ways for her character to challenge Mike Baxter on various political and social issues that the writers wanted to explore. To make this major change happen, they decided to recast the role of Kristen with a completely new actress named Amanda Fuller. There was another practical reason for making this change that had to do with the ages of the actresses playing the Baxter sisters. Even though Kristen was supposed to be the oldest sister in the family, Alexandra Krosny was actually younger in real life than Molly Ephraim, who played Mandy, the middle sister. The producers felt this age discrepancy made things seem a little off when viewers watched the show, and it didn't quite match what they were trying to portray on screen. Amanda Fuller, who was older than both Krosny and Ephraim in real life, seemed like a much better fit to play the eldest sibling and bring the maturity they were looking for. In December 2011, Nick Jonas made a surprise appearance on Last Man Standing as Ryan Vogelson, who was Kristen's ex-boyfriend and the father of her baby. He was only 19 years old at the time, and his casting was clearly meant to grab attention from his huge fan base and boost ratings during the important holiday season. In this special Christmas episode, Ryan suddenly comes back to town after disappearing for a long time and abandoning his responsibilities. He was shown as a nervous and immature teenager who had run away from being a father. The show's writers described him in unflattering terms, portraying him as someone who had gotten Kristen pregnant and then taken off. Jonas's version of Ryan was fairly simple and not very deeply developed as a character, but his appearance definitely caused quite a buzz among viewers and got people talking about the show. Things changed significantly when Tim Doyle became the showrunner starting in Season 2. He had bigger plans for Ryan's character and wanted him to be much more than just a deadbeat dad who occasionally showed up. Doyle made the creative decision to turn Ryan into a smarter and more complex character who could effectively challenge Mike Baxter's strong conservative views and create interesting conflicts. The plan was to make Ryan a regular character who had deeper connections to the entire Baxter family, not just Kristen and Boyd. However, even Doyle's vision required a different actor to pull it off effectively. In 2012, Jordan Masterson took over the role of Ryan, and he was already well known for his work on the television show Greek. Masterson brought a completely new and different version of the character to life on screen. His interpretation of Ryan was smarter, more mature, and much more politically outspoken than the version Jonas had played. He wasn't just a scared teenager anymore who was running from his problems. Instead, he had transformed into someone who could actually hold his own and argue intelligently with Mike about big ideas like politics, economics, and social values. This fundamental change gave Ryan's character a lot more depth and complexity, and it made him an important and integral part of the show's overall dynamic moving forward. Over time, as the seasons progressed, Ryan's character continued to grow and evolve in interesting ways. He went from being a struggling dad who could barely take care of himself to eventually running his own successful cannabis business called Best Buds in the later seasons. The show had a lot of fun with Ryan's unexpected success as a businessman, particularly showing how he unknowingly started acting like a capitalist, which was something that Mike found absolutely hilarious given Ryan's liberal political views. In May 2017, fans of Last Man Standing were completely shocked when ABC announced without warning that it was canceling the show. This wasn't just any show that was getting the axe because of poor performance. It was actually one of ABC's biggest hits at the time, consistently pulling in over 8 million viewers and maintaining strong ratings across all key demographics. People had fully expected the show to return for another season, especially since it was performing so well on Friday nights and seemed to have found a loyal and dedicated audience. But instead, the cancellation announcement came completely out of nowhere and blindsided everyone involved with the production. The timing of the cancellation made it even more surprising and suspicious to many observers. Just 2 months before the announcement, Tim Allen had caused quite a stir during an appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live. During that interview, he made a controversial joke, saying that being a conservative in Hollywood felt like living in 1930s Germany, which was obviously a reference to Nazi persecution. Many people immediately began wondering if that politically charged comment had anything to do with the network's sudden decision to pull the plug on the show. ABC's president at the time, Channing Dungey, insisted publicly that the cancellation wasn't about politics at all. She claimed that the network simply wanted to stop airing comedies on Friday nights altogether and instead focus on fantasy and science fiction shows for that time slot. But for the fans and even many members of the cast, this explanation felt like a weak excuse and seemed like a slap in the face given how successful the show had been. The cast members didn't hide their strong emotions about the cancellation at all. Tim Allen went on Twitter and publicly stated that he felt stunned and blindsided by the network's decision. Nancy Travis, who played his television wife Vanessa, shared her deep heartbreak with fans on social media and thanked them for sticking by the show through all the seasons. Hector Elizondo, who played Ed Alzate, even hinted in an interview that he suspected politics might have played a role in the decision to cancel the show, though he couldn't say for certain. While the older and more established cast members were shocked and upset by the news, some of the younger actors like Molly Ephraim and Caitlin Dever started moving on with their careers pretty quickly. They didn't really expect the show to come back after such a definitive cancellation, so they began actively looking for new opportunities in film and television. The fans, however, weren't ready to say goodbye to the Baxter family at all. They organized and launched one of the biggest Save the Show campaigns that had ever been seen in television history. Within just a single day, an online petition to bring the show back managed to gather over 400,000 signatures from passionate viewers. Fans took to Twitter in massive numbers, flooding the platform with literally millions of tweets using the hashtag #SaveLastManStanding to try to get the network's attention. Some dedicated fans even sent toy tools to ABC's offices as a creative reference to Tim Allen's handyman character and the show's connection to his previous hit series Home Improvement. Others went so far as to pay for large billboards in major cities like Los Angeles and New York, demanding that the network bring the show back immediately. The campaign became so widespread that even politicians got involved in the controversy. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker publicly suggested that the cancellation might have been politically motivated, adding fuel to the speculation. Behind the scenes, the reasons for the cancellation were actually a little more complicated than just politics or ratings. ABC had to pay $3 million for each episode because the show was produced by 20th Century Fox rather than ABC Studios, which meant the network didn't own the show and couldn't profit from syndication rights. On top of those licensing fees, Tim Allen's substantial salary of over $200,000 per episode added significantly to the network's costs. After the cancellation was announced, Fox executives immediately started shopping the show around to other networks, including CMT and NBC, to see if anyone else would be interested in picking it up and continuing production. In the end, Fox decided to pick up the show for its own network. Exactly 1 year after the cancellation, on May 11, 2018, Fox officially announced that they were bringing Last Man Standing back for new seasons. This decision wasn't made solely because of the passionate fan campaigns, though those certainly helped demonstrate that there was still a strong audience for the show. Fox had also noticed how incredibly well ABC had done with the revival of Roseanne, which had returned to massive ratings and millions of viewers. Seeing a chance to replicate that kind of success with their own revival, Fox decided to take a calculated risk and reportedly spent around $50 million to make it happen and secure all the necessary rights and talent. A few days before the official announcement was made public, Tim Allen dropped a subtle hint on Twitter. He told fans to keep it up with their campaign efforts, which suggested that the deal to bring the show back was already being finalized behind the scenes and would be announced very soon. Getting the show back on the air wasn't easy at all, and the timeline was incredibly tight for everyone involved. Fox announced the revival in May 2018, but they wanted the premiere to air in September of that same year. This ambitious schedule gave the entire production team just a few short months to write new scripts, cast any necessary replacements, rebuild sets, and film enough episodes for the season premiere. The writers started working intensively on scripts in June, which meant they had only about 15 weeks to get everything ready for filming. Actual filming began in August at the same studio where the show had been produced before. But there was a significant problem. The original set had been completely taken apart and dismantled after the ABC cancellation, so it had to be entirely rebuilt from scratch to match what viewers remembered. To meet the incredibly tight deadlines that Fox had set, the production team had to film 3 complete episodes every single week, which was an exhausting pace for everyone involved. Later on, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit in 2020, it caused a pause in production and added even more challenges and complications to an already difficult situation. Fox ended up spending significantly more money on the revival compared to what ABC had been spending. Each episode now cost about $1.1 million to produce, which was up from around $800,000 during the ABC years. Tim Allen's pay also went up substantially as part of the new deal. He now earned $235,000 per episode, making him one of the highest paid actors on television at that time. To help cover these increased costs, Fox made some smart business decisions. They sold streaming rights to both Hulu and CMT for $1.5 million per episode, which helped offset the production expenses significantly. The production team also found various ways to save money wherever possible, such as filming more efficiently with better planning, cutting back on expensive travel for location shoots, and being more careful about how they used their budget overall. All of this effort and investment paid off when the show returned to the air. The first season on Fox brought in about 8 million viewers on average, and the premiere episode alone got very strong ratings that proved fans were still excited to have the Baxter family back on their television screens. However, the challenges weren't over yet, and one of the main obstacles the production faced was casting new actors to replace some of the original performers who had moved on to other projects. When ABC canceled Last Man Standing back in 2017, Molly Ephraim, who had played Mandy Baxter for all 6 seasons, genuinely thought the show was finished forever. She didn't sit around waiting to see what might happen. Instead, she immediately signed up for new jobs and committed to other projects. By the time Fox brought the show back a full year later, Molly was already busy with multiple commitments. She had taken roles in different projects, including Brock Meyer with Hank Azaria and Halt and Catch Fire. Because Molly couldn't legally leave these commitments that she had already signed contracts for, coming back to play Mandy simply wasn't an option for her, no matter how much she might have wanted to return. When it came time to replace Molly Ephraim as Mandy, the producers of Last Man Standing took an interesting approach. They didn't want to find a look-alike actress who would try to recreate what Ephraim had done with the character. Instead, they wanted someone who could bring something completely new and fresh to the role while still honoring what had come before. After searching extensively for the right fit and auditioning many different actresses, they chose Molly McCook for the part. She didn't look like Ephraim at all, and the producers made the creative decision to embrace these differences rather than try to hide them. They even wrote jokes into the show that acknowledged and referenced the change in a humorous way that broke the fourth wall. When McCook first appeared as the new Mandy in Season 7, many fans were understandably upset about the change. They had grown attached to Ephraim's version of the character over 6 full seasons. Fans started using the hashtag #NotMyMandy on social media to complain about the recasting and express their disappointment. But McCook didn't let the initial negative reaction stop her or affect her performance. Instead of trying to copy or imitate Ephraim's interpretation of the character, she made Mandy completely her own with a fresh take. She focused particularly on developing the character's passion for fashion and her big dream of becoming a successful designer. The writers gave her more serious and emotionally complex storylines to work with, such as Mandy's struggle with pregnancy complications and the evolution of her relationship with her husband Kyle. Over time, as viewers got used to the change and saw what McCook brought to the role, fans gradually began to warm up to her performance. This was especially true after several emotional scenes she shared with Tim Allen, who played Mandy's father Mike. By the end of her run on the show, McCook had proven to skeptical viewers that she could bring something special and valuable to the character, even if it was different from what had come before. But Molly Ephraim wasn't the only cast member who had moved on during the hiatus. Caitlin Dever found herself in a very similar situation. After the initial cancellation of the show, she made a bold and risky decision to shift her primary focus toward film roles rather than television. This career move led to her breakout role in director Catherine Bigelow's critically acclaimed film Detroit, which became a critical turning point in her young career. From there, her success and opportunities snowballed rapidly. Within just 18 months, she had landed major roles in the hit comedy Booksmart in 2019, where she starred alongside Beanie Feldstein, and the powerful Netflix miniseries Unbelievable. These high-profile projects catapulted her into the spotlight in a way that Last Man Standing never really had. Her performance in Unbelievable was especially significant and noticed by critics, earning her both Golden Globe and BAFTA nominations. Meanwhile, Booksmart became a critical hit with glowing reviews from critics and managed to earn $25 million at the box office. Her decision to take a risk and pursue new opportunities during the show's cancellation turned out to be the best gamble she could have possibly taken for her career. When Fox revived Last Man Standing, things became significantly more complicated for Dever's involvement. She was no longer able to commit to being a full-time cast member because of all her other projects and commitments. She transitioned from being a series regular who appeared in almost every episode to becoming a recurring guest star, appearing in only 7 episodes of Season 7. However, by the time Season 8 rolled around, her appearances had dropped even further to just 2 episodes total. The COVID-19 pandemic made coordinating her schedule even harder than it already was. Strict quarantine rules required 14 days of isolation for each appearance on set, which made it extremely difficult for someone juggling multiple projects to find time to return to the show. The production team had to constantly adjust their filming schedules around Dever's limited availability. Sometimes they would write entire episodes specifically designed to be filmed during her brief windows of availability between other projects. By the time the final season came around, she appeared in only 3 episodes total, though one of those was thankfully the series finale, so her character got proper closure. Dever's significantly reduced role meant that major changes had to be made to the show's storylines and family dynamics. The writers came up with a creative explanation for her character Eve Baxter's frequent absence by establishing that she had gone off to the Air Force Academy for her education and training. This decision actually worked quite well, because it allowed her sporadic returns to the show to carry more emotional weight and impact, which helped deepen her character's overall story arc. The show also made clever and creative use of video calls and FaceTime conversations to keep Eve connected to the Baxter family, even when Dever couldn't physically be on set to film scenes. One particularly memorable episode, called The Two Nieces of Eve, was crafted specifically to fit Dever's very limited availability during that season. It focused entirely on Eve's relationship with her young nieces and managed to tie up several long-running storylines while giving fans a genuinely heartfelt moment with her character that felt satisfying. Despite her incredibly busy schedule, Dever somehow managed to juggle multiple high-profile projects simultaneously between 2017 and 2021. She starred in the acclaimed series Dopesick alongside Michael Keaton, took on a role in the film adaptation of Dear Evan Hansen, and most recently landed the highly coveted part of Abby in HBO's The Last of Us Season 2. Her commitments became so demanding and overwhelming that Last Man Standing actually had to abandon plans for 2 additional episodes featuring her character in Season 8 because of impossible scheduling conflicts. Still, despite all these difficulties, Dever remained genuinely loyal to the show that had helped launch her career in the first place. She made sure to appear in the series finale to give her character and the fans proper closure. In May 2020, Fox made the announcement that Last Man Standing would end with its 9th season. This came as a surprise to many people because the show was still performing very well in the ratings. It was averaging 8.3 million viewers per episode, which made it Fox's second highest rated comedy at the time. Fans were surprised and disappointed because the show clearly still had a strong and loyal viewership that tuned in every week. Producer Kevin Abbott later revealed that they had actually already started planning for a potential 10th season before Fox decided to end the show. One of the big ideas they had been developing was to have Amanda Fuller character Kristen eventually take over Outdoor Man, the sporting goods store that was central to the show, and rename it Outdoor Woman. This change would have focused on how the family business evolved over time and would have explored interesting themes about generational change and women in business. The writers had also wanted to bring back several fan-favorite guest stars like Jonathan Taylor Thomas and Richard Karn for special storylines that would have tied into their earlier appearances on the show, which would have been really exciting for longtime fans who remembered those episodes. As the final season approached, Abbott revealed that Fox executives wanted to create a big event to make the ending feel special and memorable. At first, Abbott wasn't particularly interested in doing anything too elaborate. He felt strongly that the show had always worked best when it focused on small, intimate, family-centered stories rather than big spectacles. But then one of the writers, John Amodio, came up with an idea that got everyone genuinely excited and interested. He suggested bringing back Tim the Toolman Taylor from Home Improvement for a special crossover appearance. This idea immediately sparked extensive discussions about how the two beloved shows could possibly connect after all these years. Over the years, the creative team had actually considered various other crossover ideas that would have linked the two Tim Allen sitcoms. One concept involved creating a shared universe where they would explain what had happened to all the Taylor family members from Home Improvement in the years since that show ended. However, these ambitious ideas were always extremely complicated to actually pull off in practice. They involved complex legal challenges and difficult negotiations between multiple different studios that owned various rights to the characters and shows. Because of these obstacles, some really exciting ideas never made it past the initial planning stage and remained just interesting. What if? Scenarios. One idea that got pretty far in development was to do a complete Tooltime reunion special within the Last Man Standing universe, which would have brought back the entire Home Improvement cast for a special episode. Another creative concept had Mike Baxter discovering that he was distantly related to Tim Taylor through some family connection, which would have created a fun storyline about their family trees connecting in unexpected ways. The writers even planned out a special Christmas episode that would have united cast members from both series for a holiday celebration, but scheduling conflicts with various actors and complicated legal rights issues made it impossible to coordinate everyone's availability. When they finally made the definitive decision to bring Tim Taylor into the show for real, it wasn't easy to make it happen legally. Since Disney owned all the rights to Home Improvement and its characters, it took extensive back and forth negotiations to get permission. Abbott revealed in interviews that the crossover wasn't officially approved by Disney until literally the day before the script reading was scheduled to take place. He even admitted that he had threatened to move forward with filming without Disney's official permission, just to put pressure on them and get things moving faster. Tim Allen, who was playing both Mike Baxter and Tim Taylor in the same episode, had some specific conditions about how it should be handled. He wanted Tim Taylor's character to be treated respectfully and not just used as a cheap gimmick or joke. He also insisted that there needed to be a proper and logical reason for why Tim Taylor would be in Colorado visiting Mike Baxter rather than just having him randomly show up. The writing team ended up rewriting the entire episode 3 different times to satisfy everyone involved, including the original creators of Home Improvement, who had approval rights over how their characters were used. Tim Allen went the extra mile to prepare for playing both characters in the same episode. He rewatched old episodes of Home Improvement to get back into that specific character and mindset, making sure that Tim Taylor and Mike Baxter would feel like two distinctly different people, even though they were both being played by him. The final episode included lots of subtle nods and references to Home Improvement that longtime fans would appreciate, such as mentions of Wilson and Tool Time. It even provided some explanation for what had happened to Tim Taylor in the years after the original series ended, giving closure to fans of that show as well. This special crossover episode became one of the most memorable and talked about moments of Last Man Standing's entire final season. It successfully tied together two beloved shows in a way that thrilled fans of both series and provided a fitting tribute to Tim Allen's television legacy as the show came to its conclusion.